That can get pretty spicy then with the
Yes,
family
yes,
that doesn't get along. Let's say siblings don't get
I
along, which
know.
we see all the time, right?
Right, it happens. So some parents, what they'll do is they'll put in actually provisions inside the trust stating that if my kids start fighting, they get nothing to try to prevent them,
Hmm.
even though they're dead, from their kids from
Yeah,
fighting. So
yeah.
the attorney will tell the kids, sorry, it says if you guys start fighting, you're not going to get anything. So maybe you should agree, otherwise you're out. So if you're a designated trustee and you're going to actually administer the estate and then
Hmm.
also the trust, which is called trust administration, it is a lot of work for whoever the trustee is,
Okay.
especially if there's multiple beneficiaries. But
Right.
there is always a way to hire a law firm to do that work for you
I
if you
like
don't
that
want to do it.
idea.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
because I follow your podcast. And Megan, if you want to tell the audience the name of your podcast,
Oh yeah, it's Business Talk with Megan McNulty.
and we'll link that too. So the reason why I
Thank
bring
you.
that up, yeah, I saw you interviewing a guest who was also an attorney, and he mentioned that trustees get sued often, and I found that crazy.
Yeah, they do by the beneficiaries sometimes. So if they're
That's
not
gnarly.
right, they don't like
Yeah.
how things are going, etc., etc., they can sue the trustee and say, you're not doing what if it's the kids my parents wanted,
Hmm.
and you're if you become a trustee, you're under a fiduciary obligation to do exactly what the trust says within limits.
This is
I know,
wild.
complicated stuff, right? People don't like
Yeah,
to think about it, but things do happen, and
with
you know
family,
we're
friends,
only
whatever.
yeah, we're only here for a visit necessarily, and when your time's up, you don't get to
Hmm.
say when it is.
3 balls, 2 strikes, pressure is on. This is where we discuss real estate, property improvement, and business. Together, we'll strategize on how to win. Welcome to the Full Count. Hey everyone, welcome back to Full Count Podcast. I have my friend Megan, who I met through a cool foundation that we'll talk about a little bit later, but she's an attorney, overall great person, and she's an expert in estate planning. So Megan, what is it? You consult a ton of business people, families, wealthy people. If you can kind of go into that, would be awesome.
Exactly. Well, thank you for having me, Andrew. I guess today we're going to talk about estate planning. So, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I
Hmm.
started out as a medical device sales rep and went to school or law school at night. I wanted
Oh
to
wow.
learn something in the law that could help uh, business owners
Mm.
and families, especially since I saw how innovative the medical device industry was in terms of bringing a new product to market and starting a company and introducing it to specialists like doctors
Right.
to help treat their patients better. And after that experience, I saw some of the challenges of actually, what business owners go through and the
Hmm.
investment aspects of it. So I decided I was going to specialize in estate planning. I also have happened to know a lot of subject matter experts in the wealth management industry from being from Los Angeles, Orange County, California.
Right. Right.
You really have access to some of the top people in terms of having an estate plan and strategies for wealth management.
Hmm.
So that, I guess, what do you want to know about estate planning? What can I tell everybody? Because a
Yeah,
lot of
I want
people,
to. I want to know. I want the audience to know and hear what exactly estate planning is. But I want to stop you real quick and go back to what you just said about the transition from the medical device, because you got your bio degree, I believe, too.
yeah,
So
so
what
I'm a
was that
biomedical
transition like?
engineer.
Uh
Yeah,
huh.
so I'm still very active in the biomedical engineering space.
Hmm.
And I so originally wanted to be a doctor, but I wasn't like all set on it. I did a rotation at USC and decided that wasn't for me.
Mm,
So I did finish with my biomedical engineering degree because I've always been
that's
fascinated
cool.
by
Yeah.
technology and the advancements in that space, as well as how we can help people who have diseases or have gone sick or been in accidents and whatnot.
Hmm.
So basically, I have a passion for that as well. So kind of like the transition from that to going to law school at night was more to be able to help people that are coming up with ideas and protecting those ideas and making sure that they have the kind of wealth that's preserved to make that happen.
Well, I give you a lot of props because going to night school while you're also working a profession is extremely difficult. I actually did that myself when I got my business degree. I was still a realtor, but at night I would take classes. So I got to hand it to you there. That alone is tough as it is, and then you prevailing in estate planning and still being a licensed attorney, which is amazing. So I give you
Yeah,
credit to that.
it was not easy thing to do for sure. I really wanted to be a lawyer, so I stuck with it. It took
Mm-hmm.
me about 5 years to finish, but it was worth it, and I'm happy I did it.
Great. So let's get into it. What is estate planning for those that don't know? And then why it's important, because not everyone has an estate planned out for them, right?
Right. Yeah, actually only 24% of Americans actually have done estate planning. And with that love, with even the 24%, only 13% actually have a trust
Oh,
or,
wow.
actual like comprehensive plan in place. So
Hmm.
basically, just to simplify it, estate planning is making sure that you have people that can make decisions for you in terms of your health and your assets, right? You put in, if you were to become sick or pass away, who's going to make decisions with regards to your body? If you're
Right.
going to become sick or pass away, who's going to make decisions with regards to your assets? So when you look at it in this respect, everybody actually needs an estate plan. I like to refer to estate planning as 3 levels. The first level is 3 basic documents called a will, a power of attorney for your healthcare, and a
Hmm.
power of attorney for your assets. And again, the healthcare power of attorney is people that can make decisions for you if you become incapacitated or sick or
Wow.
pass
Yeah.
away
Hmm.
with regards to your physical body. And then the other document, the power of attorney for assets, are people that can make decisions while you're living if you were to become sick or incapacitated, or if something happened and there was an emergency and you needed someone to act for you. A will, which is a basic document, which is first level of estate planning,
Hmm.
is a document that tells a judge who, what, when, and where you want something to happen. It doesn't do anything else but that. Your family is still in court, and it's not, it's comprehensive necessarily. A lot of people are like, oh, I have a will, I don't have to go to probate court, I don't have to hire an
Right.
attorney if someone passes away. That is not the case. So all it does is it assigns or tells a court who you want to do what, when, and where.
Yeah.
If you do not have a will in the state of California, this is different in other states, but I'm a California attorney, so we're talking
Hmm.
about California today. Um, the state of California will assign you a will, and the judge will decide what happens.
And
So
that's fascinating too, because I see it all the time in my profession as a realtor. And then this is also, this podcast is a lot about pressure moments, which, when someone dies, it's obviously a lot of pressure and grievance for the family to, decide who's going to do what. So I can see why the trust is so important. But I find so many people that are homeowners that think a will is good enough and it's going to save them from having to do a trust. But if you can kind of touch on that, kind of how you mentioned it right now, that a will still lead you to go into probate. And I don't think a trust does, right? Kind of like,
correct.
yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So what'll happen with a will is your whoever you've left it to, if you have kids, let's just say the
Hmm.
kids will have the will, they'll have to take it to court. So if they want to represent themselves in court, they could, but in most cases, you're gonna have to hire a probate attorney. So the probate attorney will file the will with the court, and then they'll petition for you to either be the executor, or if there's no one appointed in the will, then they'll have to petition for you to, become serve in that place.
Right.
This is the reason people hate probate, is because if you've been through it, it takes a long time and it's costly. Every time you file paperwork, it's a couple $100. You have to hire, you have to pay the lawyer to file everything and to represent you. So it's a lot more expensive than actually getting an estate plan or trust done. So yes, so the people, they're not necessarily covered if they just have a will. It's not the end of the world, but it's not the
Hmm.
best situation because you're still in court.
Right.
The second level of estate planning is creating what we call a revocable living trust. And a revocable living trust is what most people have when they say they have a trust. That's level 2. This is a trust that helps you avoid probate. And most people, when they say they
Mm.
have done their estate plan or have a trust, this is what they have.
Okay.
So a revocable living trust allows you to put all of your assets into it and allows whoever you designate in there as trustee to pick up where you left off. This will avoid your family having to go to court if
Hmm.
you've placed assets in this trust. And that's
I
very
see.
important. So in the state of California, if you have over $100,000, you really actually need a revocable living trust.
Oh, I didn't know that rule.
Mhm.
So if there's over that,
Yes. So lots of people need a revocable living trust.
yeah, it kind of puts a
Um,
lot of people in that category if they're a
yeah.
homeowner too.
Correct. So if you have a home that's worth, $1 million, that home, and it's not in a revocable living trust, and all of a sudden someone dies, that trust is going to probate court.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So if you put it in the revocable living trust, whoever you designate as the trustee will now be able to take over and manage that house, give it to the beneficiaries of whoever you listed inside your trust. So that's why
Mm.
most people need estate planning in California.
Hmm.
The third level of estate planning we can go all over the place, right? There's like 150 different versions of trusts out there on top of level 1 and 2. So you've got your asset protection trust, you've got your charitable giving trust, you've got your life insurance trust, you have family partnerships, all sorts of things. That's would be the third level. But no matter what, you're going to have those first 2 levels of estate planning before you get into asset protection or anything else that you want to do on top of that.
But only 13%, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Of people have a revocable living trust that you pointed out. But what were we going to say?
Well, I was just going to say, when people come to an estate planning attorney or say they want to do their estate plan, they're worried about 3 things. 1, probate. So they're trying to make sure that they're not going to probate or their family's not going to probate. 2, they're worried about taxes. There's an estate tax, a federal estate tax in the United States, where when you pass away, you owe money to the federal government if your estate is valued over a certain amount, which changes based on our legislature.
Okay.
And then 3rd, they're worried about liability. If they have a high risk job or they're worried about being sued or et cetera, they're worried that people are going to sue them for their assets. So there's ways to protect their assets, and you can do that with estate planning. So those are the 3 reasons someone would come see an estate planning attorney.
Yeah.
Now,
liability.
Right. Now, let's just say when things get kind of crazy, if you have families fighting and whatnot, that's probate litigation. So that's a little bit different than estate planning, right? So the estate planning attorneys try to make sure that they're avoiding probate. People are avoiding fighting, and they've done enough planning where we don't have probate litigation or we don't have families fighting over estates.
Okay. Interesting. What about, so part of the asset protection I imagine would be creating an LLC also while having a trust?
It really just depends. I know people hate that answer from lawyers, but it really just depends on everyone's unique situation. So I would say, like, no matter what, if we're talking about estate planning, you want to start with those 3 documents. Do you even have those? Most Americans don't. The will, healthcare directive, power of attorney for assets, and then the revocable living trust, which is a trust that allows us to avoid probate court.
Okay.
In simplified terms. Everything else after that is asset protection, and those are different vehicles, LLCs, partnerships, irrevocable trusts that allow you to protect your assets or potentially avoid the estate tax.
I see. So what is your best advice to someone that, let's say they are a homeowner and they're fairly young maybe, but they're planning to build a family, for the listeners out there, and maybe they're there to build a legacy and they have the momentum that they're going to be making a ton of money, hopefully, and own multiple properties. Where exactly would you point them in the direction for asset protection, for example, creating an LLC or not? If you can answer something like that.
Yeah, with the house. So if you're a young couple and you're buying a house in California, I would absolutely say you need a revocable living trust, because you're going to place that house in the revocable living trust and make sure that if something happens to you, it says exactly who it goes to, what happens, who's managing the situation. If you are going to buy a property and you're renting it out, that's a different story. So if you have a rental properties, a lot of people will put their rental properties in LLCs because now this is a real estate business, quote unquote, and you now have renters in there and you're collecting rent. So most likely an LLC. There's nothing wrong with a revocable living trust. You could do that too. But if you want that liability protection, then an LLC will give you more liability protection than a revocable living trust. Reminder, revocable living trusts help avoid probate. They don't give you liability protection. A lot of attorneys, you'll hear them say this story, and I've heard it a few times now when I was learning estate planning, is that it's the revocable living trust is like a red wagon. So it's there to put your assets into the trust, right? Like people put their stuff into a red wagon if they're going to the beach. That's what you do with a revocable living trust. But there's no cover on it. There's no door. There's no lock. Since you can freely put stuff in and out, so can other people. So there's no liability protection with a revocable living trust.
I see. So that makes sense to me why I see maybe someone that's considered a wealthy person, they usually have most of their properties, maybe not the ones they reside in, but at least most of them are LLCs.
Right. So if you see them in an LLC, it's because they want to make sure that whoever their tenants are that's renting their property is not going to come after them personally and sue them for all their assets. Right.
Yeah,
so yes, correct.
Okay.
And then with that said, there's other ways you'd have to plan to make sure that your LLC, if something happened to you, your family would be able to access it, or whoever you wanted, a business partner, a family member, a friend. If something were to happen with it would have to communicate with your estate plan. So that's another reason why you would talk to an attorney, to make sure that would also flow correctly.
There's a lot of nuances I'm hearing.
Yes, a lot.
A lot of, yeah. So I imagine you really have to understand the client and build a ton of rapport and actually get to know not only just them, but their family tree, essentially, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, what makes it important for someone to set up a trust with, I don't know, I don't even know what it is, but like a general company that does trust versus someone that's a licensed attorney? Because I imagine you can take different
Right.
options.
Yeah, so there's definitely you can go online to LegalZoom and get boilerplate documents and fill them in and hope that that's going to work for you.
Mhm.
But if you have a unique situation, it might not, or you might not know what you filled in, and maybe that triggered something else that's not good. So
Mhm.
I would say that while maybe it would cover the bare minimum, it's not going to be complete, right? So
Right.
you should think of an estate planning attorney as like an advisor, right? So someone that you trust, like your accountant or your
Right.
financial advisor in this
Mhm.
situation, and making sure that that's done correctly, because it could cost you money. It could cost your family in probate court. And it's not necessarily the best way to go, but like at a bare minimum, if you don't want to go see an estate planning attorney, yeah, if you created your own documents, great, that's better than nothing.
Mhm.
But it's not as good as going to see an advisor or someone that really specializes in it.
Right. Okay. So let's do an example. Let's say there's a family, parents, they have kids, they're now adults, and these are senior citizens. Let's just say
Okay.
they both pass away,
Hmm.
and I think they leave it to maybe all the children are trustees, but who exactly, like, what's the term for the person that has control of everything?
The trustee. If
The
there's a
trustee.
trust, and then
Okay.
if there's not a trust, it's going to be the executor.
Okay, so if it's a trustee then and there's multiple siblings and they choose one of the siblings as a trustee and the rest of the siblings are what, beneficiaries?
If they designate them beneficiaries.
If they designate.
Yep.
Okay, got it. Can the trustee, one of the siblings, be also a beneficiary and a trustee?
Yes, they can.
Interesting. And I imagine that's a lot of responsibility then.
It's a lot of work. Yes, you can always hire a law firm to do the work for you,
Okay.
or a bank. But yes, if you're designated trustee and you're going to actually administer the estate and then
Hmm.
also the trust, which is called trust administration, it is a lot of work for whoever the trustee is,
Okay.
especially if there's multiple beneficiaries. But
Right.
there is always a way to hire a law firm to do that work for you
I
if you
like
don't
that
want to do it.
idea.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
because I follow your podcast. And Megan, if you want to tell the audience the name of your podcast,
Oh, yeah. It's Business Talk with Megan McNulty.
and we'll link that too. So the reason why I
Thank
bring
you.
that up, yeah, I saw you interviewing a guest who was also an attorney, and he mentioned that trustees get sued often, and I found that crazy.
Yeah, they do by the beneficiaries sometimes. So if they're
That's
not
gnarly.
right, they don't like
Yeah.
how things are going, et cetera, they can sue the trustee and say, you're not doing if it's the kids my parents wanted.
Hmm.
And if you become a trustee, you're under a fiduciary obligation to do exactly what the trust says within limits.
I see.
So
So
yes.
that can get pretty spicy then with the
Yes.
family
Yes.
that doesn't get along. Let's say siblings don't get
I
along, which
know.
we see all the time, right?
Right, it happens. So some parents, what they'll do is they'll put in actually provisions inside the trust stating that if my kids start fighting, they get nothing, to try to prevent them,
Hmm.
even though they're dead, from their kids from
Yeah.
fighting. So
Yeah.
the attorney will tell the kids, sorry, it says if you guys start fighting, you're not going to get anything. So maybe you should agree, otherwise you're out.
Right. Right.
So we
But
try to prevent that from happening, especially because
uh-huh.
if kids start fighting or beneficiaries start fighting with one another, it can really drain all the assets out of the trust, and then no one's going to get anything.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay. But I imagine the in the trust, the will and everything like that, they're able to dictate to the trustee who gets what. So there should already be like a streamline of a decision to be
There
made.
is, yes.
Okay. But
Yes.
then do the beneficiaries have the ability to go up against it and petition? Is that why it becomes so toxic?
So what could happen is it could be, okay, brother got, 500,000, sister got 500,000,
Hmm.
but sister's mad because parents put the down payment on their house, so she thinks she's entitled to more,
I see. So that's
stuff
where it
like that.
happens. Yeah.
Yes. Or it could be that, This trust just said everything's split 50-50, but I want to stay in the house and my brother wants to sell the house.
Okay. So this
Mhm.
is complicated, but I like it because it's a real scenario, and the people watching and listening can really understand why having a trust is so important. And
Yeah.
and to me, it seems now that we're having this conversation, how important it is to probably have a licensed attorney also
Yeah.
overlook this for you. Not overlook it, but review it for you.
Right.
Um, Quick question. I don't know if you can answer this, but let's say the same topic, same example, but the trustee, what can that trustee do knowing they're going to be trustee when the parents die? What can they do to protect themselves from being liable for losing their own house if the beneficiaries really go after them?
So normally in that situation, if they're worried about it, you're going to hire an attorney to represent you as
Hmm.
trustee. So you would
Okay.
hire an estate planning attorney or an estate or a probate litigator to
Hmm.
represent you, and they would make sure that you were fulfilling your duties and advising you on every step you were taking.
Okay.
And that is very
Okay.
common. Most people will hire an attorney to administer the trust with them. The trustee will hire the attorney to help them.
Beforehand.
Well, let's just say mom and dad die, and
Hmm.
brother one is now a trustee. He's going to probably most likely hire mom and
Yeah.
dad's estate planning law firm to help him administer the trust to make sure he's doing everything correctly.
This makes a lot of sense. So I almost had a listing in Mar Vista, and it was a beautiful home. The trustee, the sibling, wanted to sell the house, right? And his sister did not want him to sell the house. So they were arguing, and he said, "You know what, Andrew, we're gonna have to hold off for like a year or 2 years of selling because my sister says she'll sue me if I sell it." So it's starting to kind of make sense how kind
Yeah.
of uneasy this can all kind of play out.
Yeah, and you can avoid that if you plan everything out correctly and every
Yeah.
scenario is taken care of with an attorney. You can definitely avoid the fighting for sure.
Right. So this one may have not been as played out
Yeah. The other
perfectly.
thing I wanted to bring up is what about people with little minor children? So if you have minor children and something happens to both mom and dad and you haven't designated guardians, the state's going to decide who gets the
Oh,
kids.
geez, that's
So
not
you
good.
always want to plan in place. As soon as you have kids, buy a house, get married, get divorced, you always want to have an estate planning attorney.
Right. And I heard this story too, or I'm pretty familiar with it, but it's really unfortunate because you actually hit it right exactly of what I'm aware of. But basically, there was this a mother, her kids, right? She passes, and then the kids, she made it so she designated the guardians in the trust also, I think, to take over the children. But other of the beneficiaries of the trust were arguing why that guardian shouldn't take the kids. And there was a big mess that kind of went on and on and on. But ultimately, the guardian ended up keeping the kids just like it was played out in the whole estate plan. But dang, this is
I know,
wild.
complicated stuff, right? People don't like
Yeah,
to think about it, but things do happen. And,
with
you know,
family,
we're
friends,
only,
whatever.
yeah, we're only here for a visit necessarily. And when your time's up, you don't get to
Hmm.
say when it is. So it's important, but it's also important to make sure that you're protecting, your assets that you're building or accumulating, and also making sure that your family is protected too.
Right.
And it's not just when you pass away. It can also be because you become incapacitated for a certain amount of time, you have an injury or you have an illness and you can't, act for yourself temporarily.
Right.
It could also be that you're living, but you now have dementia or your mind is gone. So there's other scenarios besides death that do happen as well that help you plan out. And
Yeah.
once you have a foundation in place, you just keep updating it over the years in terms of, accumulating something new like a house, or if a new event in your life happens. And it's just kind of like doing your taxes, to be honest.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. There's a
Yeah.
lot of responsibility adults need to take, whether we like it or not. Unfortunately,
Yep.
sometimes. But okay, so you and I met at a cool foundation that I want us to kind of briefly talk about because this is also about business, and I find you to be an incredible businesswoman. Besides your entrepreneurial background, and then also you being an expert in law and estate planning, but you're one of the best people I've met at networking. And I think a lot of that comes down to you being actually very good at caring about other people and really taking into account what friendship is. Where did we meet, if you can kind of explain that? And then what's that foundation all about?
Yeah, so there's an organization in Newport Beach where I live called Newport Beach Foundation, and it
Hmm.
was started to help kind of shepherd the next generation of leaders into leadership roles where, we might not necessarily have people ready to take on those positions. So
Right.
let me give you an example. So in the city of Newport Beach, much like lots of cities, there's different committees, there's different elected positions. So for instance, someone takes care of our harbor, someone takes care of the arts, someone takes care of the library, someone takes care of the roads, the trees, everything, right? So the water, where I think I said that, where the water comes from. But there's positions that people can go into if you live in the city to help with that, right? And you're either appointed or elected to those positions. So the foundation teaches the next generation how to get into those positions and like how you're elected to them or appointed, right? Because a lot of people don't know, and they also don't know these positions
Yeah.
exist. And then it
Yeah.
also,
I didn't.
yeah, then it also teaches people about their communities. So like for instance, when you call 911, who are you being dispatched to? When there's a fallen tree in the road, who are you supposed to call? Like who are the police, who are the firefighters, who are the heads of these organizations? If something happens or there's a catastrophic event, like what is the protocol? Like what are you supposed to do? Who takes care of, basically where our water comes from? Do you know where our water comes from? Like what if there's a problem? Like what's the
Big
city plan, right?
Right.
The big thing in California right now is housing, right? We don't have enough housing, so we're being forced to develop affordable housing, which is really difficult. So like what does that look like? And how does that affect everybody? How do the public schools operate? Like what if there's all that stuff. So foundation is structured to, you apply to take the class. It happens twice a year, and it's about 5 to 6 classes you have to commit to in order to pass, but it's called our Distinguished Citizenship Program. And we're trying to encourage, citizenship and knowing about your community and how it's run. And, also too, how do the cities make money? When you hear like their budgets, their deficits, like why does Newport Beach have a surplus? Like, because we're getting taxes from what businesses are paying us taxes. Or is it the property taxes? Like how much does the state Sacramento take and the federal government versus how much actually stays in our city? So it's stuff that I think people used to know
back in the
day, and now we've kind of fallen away from that. People just don't pay attention, don't know their neighbors, don't know who the fire chief is or the police chief, and it is sad. So we're trying to bring that back. So it's a program you have to apply. We had 80 people apply for the one coming up in May, and we only take I think 25 people. So it's a very popular program.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's where we met. So
exclusive, yes.
Yeah, and it's also really fun because you get to meet people that also care about their city and leadership and networking. And I think I did the program in 2019, the first class, and I met like 4 of my best friends from that class that I'm still really close with today. So It's just a great way to also get to know people. And great I met community. You too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there's something inherent in you for leadership then, I imagine.
Yeah, I've always liked it since I was little. I like people a lot. And I like cities. So I like the hustle and bustle of networking, I guess, and dealing with people and stuff.
And you've gotten to have the experience with people in LA and Newport. I think you work those both markets.
Yes. I know LA really well. As I spent most of my life actually in Los Angeles. I went to USC and then lived in Brentwood, and then moved back to downtown LA to go to Southwestern Law School. And I love Los Angeles as well. So so it's interesting to see like both counties, Orange and Los Angeles.
Yeah, County. And every city is ran differently, and I think a lot of that is based on people. I think most people kind of care, especially tax-paying people care, but they don't really know how to help. And one of those ways is through the foundation, Newport Beach Foundation, that we're involved with, and I think that's so. That gives a good testament to why that city is thriving, right?
Yeah. So one thing, after I did the program in 2019, I was like, I want to get involved. I want to be on the art commission. So I applied. And I think arts are also important too, because it's like another kind of dying, area where people don't understand. But, every city has art, or they have artwork, and they're responsible for it. So I was able to get on that commission and kind of learn how, that was run in the city as well. So it was an opportunity. I don't think I would have had the opportunity had I not gone through the program.
Sure.
But,
well, this is great. Our time's almost up. I do want to make sure that everyone watching and listening knows how to find you. If you can name the name of your podcast again, your website, and anything else would be awesome.
So it's Business Talk with Megan McNulty, And you can find me online at meganmcnultylaw.com.
Awesome. I think you're going to get some phone calls hopefully after this, and let me know how that goes.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I definitely want to have you back on next time too, and we can kind of go down the rabbit hole of how the super wealthy people usually like to set up their trust and the fun places you've been to for doing that.
We can definitely discuss that. And you should come on Business Talk too.
I will be on Business Talk.
Yes. Okay, let's do it.
All right, Megan. Thank you.
Okay.